Welcome back. You're now watching the lifestyle segment of the weekend show. Our topic of discussion today is rent in Nigeria. Shelter is universally considered as one of the most important human needs, and in Nigeria, housing is a big challenge for a lot of people. It is not uncommon to witness issues between landlords and tenants, which often boils down to lack of communication or both parties not being well informed about their rights as a tenant or landlord. But before we delve into the discussion, we have a bead maker with us today in the studio, Asma, the CEO of Bedazzled. Welcome to the program, Asma. So later on in the program, she'll be walking us through the beads that she's going to make for Andy and I. I look forward to that gift that she has for us. But right now, we have in the studio to discuss rent in Nigeria.
With us in the studio, we have a marketing strategist and communications consultant, Olly Ejere. Welcome to the Weekend Show.
Thank you.
Also with us, we have Dr. Meekfred Nwachukwu. She's a pediatric resident. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you.
It's also my pleasure to welcome Kehinde Oluwadare-George, the Executive Director and CEO of George Realty. Welcome, Kenny.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
Awesome, thank you.
Great.
Kenny, let me start with you. What are some important questions tenants must ask their landlords before signing an agreement?
I think some of the major questions you need to ask as a tenant, you want to rent a property, is you want to find out, are there any existing bills that, may not be aware of? You may want to find out what the reasons why the last tenant left. You may also, apart from asking the landlord, you want to find out from the neighborhood, what the landlord is like. Is it responsive, from other tenants in the compound? You don't want to get to a land or property where, something is leaking or something is not working and the landlord, ignores your calls for days. So those are some of the questions you want to ask, and then of course, how often, do you want to collect your rent? Is it annually? Is it monthly or quarterly? Some of those questions you need to find out.
We were just talking about this before the segment about rents. Are they monthly or yearly rent? What do you think is feasible and fair to both the landlords and the tenants?
I think because of the system, because it's not very easy to follow up on your tenants because of our data system here in Nigeria. You won't be able to find out who is owing you for how long. I think it's better to go with a 1-year payment plan. 1 year rent payment, because you don't have to look for your tenants to make payments, and tenants in Nigeria are troublesome. Yeah, when it's time to pay rent, that's when you know the true colors of your tenants. So it's better to do the 1-year system because of the 1-year payment because of the system. You don't want to start chasing your tenants.
So basically, it's the trust factor.
Yes, it's the trust factor.
Kenny mentioned that you have to agree from the very beginning who's responsible for fixing things in the house, who's responsible for fixing things outside the house. Andy and I were just talking about a situation where the landlord would say, anything that happens in your house, you're responsible for it, but anything that happens in the front, yard, I'm responsible
Which
for
is
it.
almost nothing.
Which is nothing.
Like what happens outside, everything's actually internal.
So Meekfred, for the people who are watching and are looking to score a better negotiation deal with their landlords, what advice do you have to give them regarding this issue?
Well, realistically, I think that if it's feasible for you, it's better to get a lawyer with you in your conversations. It will ensure that you're being fair to the landlord in the agreements that you sign, and it will ensure that the landlord is being fair to you in certain negotiations. I also do feel realistically that what happens within the house, because of the method of renting in Nigeria, basically most people are renting an empty house. It's not already furnished. So in that case, I realistically do think that he is right. What happens within the house, especially if it's for a year, it should be your responsibility. I don't know if that's an abstract thought.
I think it depends on the landlord, on the type of house you're renting. For example, if you're renting a fully serviced house, maybe the house that comes with air conditions, the lighting and all of that, I don't think you have to call the landlord when there is a problem, because it's not your property. It's different if you brought the air condition and a bunch of other things, then you can fix them when they're faulty. But if you didn't put them in the house, if you're living in a serviced house, the landlord should be responsible for that.
Let me give you a good example. Let's use a good scenario. Plumbing. So it's within your house,
Yeah.
but could be affected by external factors from outside.
Yeah.
Whose responsibility should that be? There's a water leak from the house upstairs coming into yours. Who sorts that out?
The landlord.
Okay, so in this case, the landlord. But say, for instance, with the instance she made, the air conditioning. You came to the house, you met the air conditioning functional. You might have done something that has made the air condition to malfunction and stop working. Do you then call the landlord who gave you his house fully furnished with a working air conditioner and tell him the air conditioner is spoiled? That's your responsibility. I assume you're the one that made it spoil. Or
Some of those things spoil after 1 week.
But you see, Kenny, I want you to jump in here because a lot of people find these discussions when it's time for negotiation very trivial. They don't put it down in their agreement. So the reason we're having this conversation now is because it's so important. People have this conversation after the fact, after you've signed the agreement.
Exactly.
You know, so what can they do? What are the things that we must put in that rent, agreement from the very beginning?
I mean, I think, like I mentioned earlier, the first things first is you need to find out who is fixing what. You need to find out, obviously the landlord should fix the common areas, like you said. You need to find out, what damages are considered as external or internal. For instance, take the plumbing, work, for instance. The agreement needs to state that the landlord would come, there has to be an SLA, there's a specified period that the landlord will come to fix the property, if it's an external damage. Because at the end of the day, the onus is on the tenant, because you're the one habiting the place. So if you don't fix it, or if the landlord is not responsive, you have to fix it. Otherwise, you're the one that will suffer. I have a co-tenant or a friend who had to go fix the leakage upstairs in the apartment upstairs, just because it's his house. He's the one suffering, So at the end of it, these are the things that you need to find out. You need to put in the agreement. How responsive would you be? Who fixes what? What are the timelines? Those are the things that you need to cover, really. Or else, at the end of the day, you're the one that will suffer.
So you're not being a petty tenant when you say, dear landlord, plumbing is your responsibility, fixing my TV is your responsibility.
I think in Nigeria, we're so laid back. That's one of the problems with Nigeria. We don't do things by the book. We seem to just, gloss over things and sweep things under the carpet. If you really want to enjoy your house, I mean, you have rights as a tenant. Of course, the landlord has his rights as well. But you need to sign an agreement, and you need to state these things clearly. Because otherwise, if you leave it to chance, the landlord has every right to say, no, it's not me. And at the end of the day, if you fix it, the landlord also has a right to say, I'm not reimbursing you. So it's your loss at the end of the day. So, those are the things.
I mean, that's why in some other parts of the world, they do like a security deposit where when you're coming in, you put, say, a month's rent in case you run away a month before your rent is due, or say there are some of these problems, then the landlord can fix that. But in Nigeria, talking about Nigerian peculiar problems, and Meekfred, I'm asking this to you. We learned that a lot of ladies, single ladies, for instance, can't rent houses. Most landlords will refuse to rent a house to a young lady who is, say, between 20 to 35 because she's single, and so some of them have to get a male friend to help them pose as if they're the ones renting the house, whatever. What's your take on that, and what do you think should be done?
This is not something that I've heard of that typically happens, but you can understand from the perspective of the landlord as well, because to think about it holistically. You want to rent your house, you're probably renting this house as a source of income, right? So you want to rent your house to someone who you feel will be able to pay, who you feel will be able to pay as at when due without any problems, to someone maybe you feel that's particularly responsible. And Nigeria can be a bit misogynistic. They can be a bit, they can be a bit stereotypical to women, unfortunately, which is the situation. I feel like that's absolutely unfair. A woman has every right to rent a house if she can show, maybe, of course, I also feel like maybe landlords should demand certain things as well. Maybe history of where you work, something to show that you can pay if they have a concern. But that should be demanded from everyone, really, even if it's a family. Everyone should have the same demands. Okay, show me that you can pay the rent, show me history, and if that's available, I don't see why that should be the case. I don't see why
there should be discrimination.
Why there should be some form of stereotypicalism, or there should be some form of choosing, if it's a woman, I'm not going to rent my house to her. That's absurd.
Okay, but you worked in real estate. Is this a thing or not?
It's a thing. And the worst part is that there is no reason when you ask, why don't you want to rent to a woman? There's a bunch of unnecessary reasons, like she's a woman, she brings too many friends, or I don't want too many men coming here, I don't want all her female friends, I don't want noise, they don't really have a point. I would expect them to say with their chest what they are thinking, that she might not be able to afford the house, or she might not be able to pay the bills when the time is right. But if you have the evidence, maybe her pay slip, or like she said, history of where she's worked or where she has lived before, you're able to measure, do your data mining and know if she can pay, then there's no reason why you should, you know, deprive a young woman from renting a house. I mean, and there's so many young women these days that really want to live outside home.
Discrimination law against this, because it's absurd. I read a story on Twitter, and a young lady had gone to rent a house from a couple, and as soon as they saw her, the wife of the landlord said, "Oh, you are my husband's type, so so just forget about renting this property." And she was just, you know, flabbergasted. Like, she was like, what kind of rubbish is this? You know, I can't rent a property because I'm your husband's type. So isn't there a discrimination law that prevents this, that young women who are working, 21st century women who are playing their role in nation building, can bring money out of their pocket and rent whatever property they want?
I think, sadly, at this point, you know, I'm not aware of any. I don't think there's any. And the reason is, first and foremost, we have serious regulatory issues to start with in the housing sector. But I think it also goes down to, it's more than just real estate, it's more than just renting, it goes down to the societal, you know, gender discrimination issues, you know, and if there's no law stopping that in the first instance, it would cascade down to all areas, including, you know, renting of houses. You know, so there really isn't, and I really believe there should be, you know, but we have to take that from a whole discussion of, you know, starting from the gender issues in the society as well.
And let me just cut in. And if you're going to have to do that, then you have to also address the tribalism as well, put the laws together, because if you're going to, if there are landlords not wanting women to rent houses, there's more landlords who don't want certain tribes to rent houses from them as well. My landlord, for instance, has a type. He has tribes that he doesn't want. And it's because, you know, they ruined the house before, but I don't think that's a good reason.
It's not the whole tribe.
Exactly, it's not like the whole tribe. I don't think it's a good reason. So if there's going to be laws protecting women, then it should be like a whole, I think there should be laws, It's absurd.
Okay, so from the work angle, penny-wise, pound-foolish, and this is to all of you, would you rather stay in somewhere an hour away from your workplace, which is, say, way cheaper, or somewhere 5-10 minutes close to your workplace, which is more expensive?
Personally, I would stay, well, coming from Lagos, I moved to Abuja from Lagos, so, you know, it's easier. It's way, I mean, it's better, obviously, to stay close 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes from your workplace, because, you know, everybody works on the island and they live on the mainland. So, you know, it's easier, it's better. But here in Abuja, you know, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, you find that Abuja doesn't have traffic. So if you can look for a relatively, you know, affordable place, nice, but, you know, close to work, that's easier in Abuja. Maybe not so in other cities. Personally, I think 5-10 minutes is fine. You know, I've once lived in a place where my office was a stone's throw from my house. It was perfect for me, you know, but also it depends though on your budget. Don't go trying to overdo things just because you want comfort. You know, you have to be able to weigh that balance.
Ideally, how much should an individual spend on rent? You know, there's this whole huge debate about you only spend about 2 months' rent on your yearly, 2 months' salary on your yearly rent. Some people said that's impossible. You have to spend at least 6 months.
In Nigeria, we work to pay rent.
Exactly. So that's it. So
especially since we pay ahead.
How much is ideal to pay for your to budget for your rent?
Well, it depends on where you're living, of course. The rent in Abuja is quite expensive, and also it depends on your taste. So if you want to live in, if you don't mind living in like certain areas like Lugbe, Kubwa, there's like maybe about 1.5 million. For example, in Madaki, for 1.5 million, you can get a 3-bedroom duplex. In Lokogoma, you can get a 3-bedroom duplex for 1.5 million rent. That's even like with your own compound.
But in Maitama?
But in Maitama, maybe like 5 million for that same, or even more. In Kado, where I live, I pay about 2.1 million, but it's serviced. So it also depends on what you want. But typically, if it wasn't serviced, it would probably be going for about 1 million or 1.5. Where I was living before was about 1 million, and it wasn't serviced. I had
But
to.
if you were earning about 20 million a year per annum, what percentage of that would you advise or would be sensible to pay as rent yearly?
Okay, I think you should maybe use 30% of your salary for your accommodation. And
Meekfred, you have something to add?
Yeah, I want to briefly interject and just speak about the average Nigerian. Realistically, the average Nigerian doesn't get 20 million, right, in a year. What does the average Nigerian get in a year? Maybe 600,000. What is the minimum wage, and what do civil servants get? Maybe 60,000 a month, 50,000 a month. So to answer the initial question, first of all, which was where should I live in proximity? In comparison to Lagos, there's no traffic in Abuja, but realistically, there is traffic in Abuja. If, for example, you live in somewhere like Maraba and you work in Wuse, there's extreme traffic. Some people have to literally leave home at maybe 4 a.m. to get to work on time so that they can be at work when work starts 7:45, 8 o'clock, right? So there is huge traffic. So realistically, it is probably more convenient for the average Nigerian to stay farther away and just pay for what they can afford and commute, because the method of commute is cheaper. And then in respect to the question you asked, how much of your salary? Realistically, maybe, to be honest, except if it's in Nigeria, we don't have a mortgage system, so it's rent. So maybe 10-20% of your salary should go for your yearly salary should go for your living, your house accommodation, but that's not the case. Most people are spending 70%, 80%.
Yeah.
Kenny, so you have two different ideal situations. One person says 30%, another 30% of your annual salary. Another person says between 10 to 20% of your annual salary. What do you say?
I think realistically, one of the problems we have in Nigeria first is we don't have a saving culture. So if you think about it from this is my total package, how much do I need to pay? What are the people I'm paying? Because at the end of the day, if you pay 40% rent, you pay food, you're feeding, transportation, you're actually paying all these out, and you're not paying yourself. So if 30% to 20%, I generally tell people 2 months. 2 months salary gives you, some level of comfort, and then you know that you can breeze through the year. It's one of the reasons also, because of this discussion, is one of the reasons why I'm a very, very strong proponent for monthly rents. Because then you pay your salary, you get your salary, you just take it off your rent. At the end of the year, you're not thinking 2 months, 3 months, calculating, 5%, 30%, taking loans, because obviously there's no savings culture. That's that's my view, and that's why that's where I would like Nigeria to get to.
Yeah, with a contract, monthly rents should be able to work, really.
Andy, how about you? So, what percentage of your salary do you spend on rent?
I'll speak for the average Nigerian. I think the average Nigerian spends about 80%.
80?
About 80%. And so that's why you have everybody doing a side job to pay for other things. Most people, I've done a 9 to 5 in Nigeria, and at that time, I was working to pay rent. And so I had to get a big contract of sorts to pay like 2 years rent. And then I quit that job and decided to pursue other things to make more money. But I think it's about 80% people are currently paying. I'm an advocate for monthly salaries, but I feel you shouldn't spend monthly rent. Sorry, I feel you shouldn't spend more than 25% of your annual earnings on rent.
It seems to me that this conversation needs to expand from just the topic at hand to the quality of life and well-being for everyday Nigerians. So on the political segment of the program, we'll be talking about the new minimum wage. And even with that, at 30,000 naira per month, I wonder, where you can get, if we're saying 2 months of your salary, where you can get the 60,000 naira a year. It sounds pretty unrealistic.
Then you start asking what kind of accommodation.
Exactly.
Because I mean, you can get. To be honest, I'm sure in some places in Abuja you can get rent for 80,000 naira, but the quality of that accommodation becomes
or even 50,000 actually in some places.
It's
but obviously,
two things.
you can't even use the word quality. You just see the accommodation. It's terrible.
It's
like a
two
roof
things.
over
With,
your
it's two things with
Whatsoever.
the quality of living real estate in Nigeria as a whole. It's qualitative accommodation as per the quality of. It's either it's of very low quality but affordable, or of normal okay quality and then unaffordable. So there's no balance. And by the time you bring in minimum wage, it's a whole problem. And then by the time you bring in buying of houses, half of us can't buy houses.
I think the whole conversation about the minimum wage as well. If you look at the national housing policy, Nigerian the policy was based on the agenda, on the premise that the government will produce housing.
Yeah.
But now government isn't doing so much in that regard. So there's a lot of private sector participation or full participation really in housing.
They miscalculated.
Exactly, and that's why you have such high rents.
And you have those houses with the mortgage facilities available, but the mortgage banks are not even paying to this organizations they've had this partnership, and government has said, you know what, we're subsidizing housing, so we want to do this in partnership with you. And we all talk about public-private partnerships. But when this time comes, like she said, they miscalculate and just say, oh, we're building 50,000 houses. Banks give the money to these people who pay over time. Even the mortgage banks don't trust Nigerians, so you're in the business to provide funds for people who want housing to pay over well, and you're not even ready to trust them enough to fund them. So it's just.
It's not just that they don't trust Nigerians, because the development of the property is with the government. They also don't trust the government, because actually you could. Sometimes the PMBs, they are wary of the developer of the property, which, there's a lot of private developers out there. So they have to get to a certain milestone before they can disburse disburse your funds that have been granted to them from the bank. There's a whole process, first of all, before FMBN gives them those funds. And when they get it, before they can actually disburse it to you, the individual, there's a whole process, and then they also have to do their checks and balances with the developer. Now, if they don't get to a certain stage of construction, they can't give you your money. You are wondering, why you're not releasing my money? The developer is wondering, give us our money, but they are saying you developed to a certain extent, or they probably haven't even received the funds yet. So they just buy time, and then they don't care.
It seems
that
like
you are waiting.
there's a whole cycle that needs to be dismantled, and a proper structure needs to be built back up for everyday Nigerians to be able to live a quality life. Olly, Meekfred, Kenny, thank you so much for coming on today's program.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. We'll take a short break right now. When we return, we'll be checking in with our bead maker and to see the beautiful products she's made for Andy and I. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're still watching the lifestyle segment of the weekend show. We're here with the CEO of Bedazzled, Asma. Show us this beautiful bead that you made in under how many minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Okay, so this is what I call the pearly chain bracelet, and all it requires is the elastic string, the pearl bead, and your chain, then your other tools, which the presser, the stopper, and the fishing line to make.
Wow, and it takes 5 minutes.
Yes.
How long
maximum
have you
5
been doing
minutes.
this for?
I think this has taken me about 7 years now,
Wow.
since I was young.
So do you source for your materials locally, or do you have to get them from some other place? Are these materials, the beads and all the pearls, found here in Nigeria?
For now, yes, but I want to actually, when I expand, I want to start importing beads.
Or probably exporting some of
and
this
also
also?
exporting my material.
So you just made this for us, so I'm quite jealous, but it does look really beautiful, because I know it would go well with her own bracelet, so.
Yes, it's good.
Awesome. Perfect.
This may actually look good on me, so I mean, I could, like,
Andy,
with the white kaftan.
This is beautiful.
It
So how much
is.
would this go for?
This would just go for 2,000.
Okay.
Because
Awesome.
when I'm costing, I take the cost, I take the price. When I'm pricing, I take the cost of each material I use,
Okay.
plus the profit and everything.
How's the patronage so
You see
far?
it?
How's that been? Do you get a lot of clients and customers, or you wait for others first?
For now, the business is still growing actually. So most of my customers are actually my friends and people I know around me, like my family, relatives, and also It's still growing, I think.
What's your Instagram handle? Let's sell your
Yes,
market.
I was just about to say, now your story has changed. Your customers are going to be the millions of viewers watching this program here in Nigeria and in the UK. So share with us your Instagram handle and how people can purchase beautiful bracelets like this.
It's bedazzled_ by Asmi.
Okay.
And you could just go to my page and look through all the materials I have, all the products I've made. Then usually when you see something online and you really like, you could also send me the picture and I'll make something really similar. I have this code that I usually say we make dreams come true. So anything you want, we could make it available. Just by my phone number is there, and we also have, you can send a direct message to place your order.
Okay.
So follow her, patronize her. We've been talking about supporting Nigerian businesses, and so it's great. We've had a chef on the show, you had a makeup artist, and now we have you. So it's really, really great what you're doing. We do wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Keep
you
up the
for
good
having me.
work, and I hope you make some things
You
for
have
men
to,
as
like,
so Andy doesn't
I'm
get
going
too
to follow
jealous.
you now and send you that DM so you know what's up.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Asma,
you
for
so
coming
much.
in the program. We'll take a short break right now. When we return, the sports segment of the weekend show. Don't go anywhere.